Hello, everyone, dear parents, dear students, and our followers. This is Bill, the founder of Harmony Plus. This is our continuous webinar. This is the week 234. We are happy to have all of you here to listen to our Dean, Esther, to share something about trust. Before we start, I actually want to share a quick video as well. It will be in Chinese, but you can see what happened. It will be short. Let me share and start.
哎，宝宝请坐。哎，妈妈你好。
这是针对自己嘛？
对。
那我觉得我应该就是直接勾没有的比较快。几乎每一项都要打勾。我最讨厌我妈一直叫我读书、读书、读书。
那后面谁这样子，觉得念够了，念够了。
一回到家里就是先看布袋戏。爸爸是比较凶，棍子还没有打到我，我要先跑。妈妈她就会限制，不可以看这些东西，不可以听什么。
我就假装还是有去补习，拿他们给我的补习费跑去打电动。
反正只要我堂弟考得比我好，我就死定了。我有偷改考卷过啊，偷改成绩啊。
不是塞在抽屉，就是时一时冲马桶。
我爸他就逼我去弹电子琴，其实又多一件很痛苦的事情。
你会觉得自己当孩子的时候，爸爸妈妈的信任对你重要？
重要，信任带来的自由，这种东西就建立在父母能多信任。那时候确实都是。如果说父母愿意给我们当时的我们，如果说有多一点空间，或许我今天可能还可以做更多的事情吧。对我儿子做的。
我是徐玉豪，大家好，我是钟晨瑞。我妈对我们凶就是
不敢讲。
他有时候都会帮我做东西做太好，我想自己去尝试做做看。
因为现在小女生嘛都会追星嘛，然后她会比较担心说，你这个看太多会不会影响？跟我妈比起来，我已经算少了。
妈在意分数？
在意，因为如果我考不好，她就感觉就没办法学之类的吧。不然考的时候考很烂，然后不好就生气。我生气的时候会骂人。他也会说：“你知道我这个排名啊，我花大钱不是为了你，这成绩没有这么说。”
那你觉得你妈妈了解你？
觉得妈妈没有很了解我。
他完全不信任我，他不信任我能够自己自主管理。
就从小到大就习惯他生气，然后习惯他比较。
他会提出一些就是建议要求，可是我觉得他就自己没有达到那个要求。不要每次都把我跟别人比较啊，就觉得一直被羞辱，明明没有做错事，但是就感觉好像做错事。希望我妈可以信任我一点，然后给我多一点点的自由时间。怎么办？你都这样录音，我好尴尬。
花大钱，没有说花大钱，是花钱让你去补习。
其实这个问卷是当初访问你儿子，你儿子写下来的。
你说这些的啊？这些吗？
对。
全部吗？但没有这么多吧。
Killing me， 我超级想要反驳，
就是因为我不好，才希望他好，因为我觉得有眼前亏啊。
是一种传承吧。上面的父母亲要求我，我可能也会现在要求我的孩子这样子。
或许不自觉中就会有希望他比我们更优秀这样的心态出现。我改变可能不够，要找太太一起改变才行。
我觉得可能我对他信任度不够。如果我不想跟孩子之间有这么大的鸿沟，我会改变我自己。
但他有这种，其实你给过他称赞的，对他来讲影响小，而且影响很大。我赞美又是蛮深的，你想知道吗？
想知道
哦，非常非常想知道。
就藏在你的问卷下面。
啊，真的假的？
Hi Mom， 还记得你在我英语演讲，你给我肯定，让我有自信。
爸爸，你曾经在我国小的时候说我会骑脚踏车，这让我以后也很爱骑脚踏车。
我永远记得你在剧团演戏第2次时给我的鼓励，因为这样我就会更努力。
我记得有一次我数学考得很好，你说很棒，下次继续努力。这句话给了我对数学的信心。
因为我多信任你一点。我们的目标是看有没有机会把这个沟全部擦掉。
从现在开始，通通都不干预。
啊，我才不行。
你也害怕了吧？
差一半。对，
这就可以擦掉了。
学习自立的开始，真的，我愿意相信。
妈咪，谢谢你相信。
Okay, so this is a video I used to warm up today's webinar. I just saw 100 participants in this webinar now. How many parents watched as I did with tears falling down? It doesn't matter if you had, that's fine, because we as parents, we love our kids. As parents, we care about our kids. But today, the topic we're going to discuss, it is about trust. It is about trust. It is about how to build up the trust, how trust empowers. And I would like to share as well, again, a quick introduction. So today's key topic, it is about trust and how trust empowers. Our Dean Esther will be the speaker. I'm hosting, and I appreciate because as a company, as a team, we have been trusted since we were established. Top-notch universities like UC Berkeley, Stanford, MIT, or even SRI International, these organizations trusted us. And even school board, California School Board Association, Southside Unified School District, Mountain View Wiseman School District, East Side Union High School District, Fremont Union High School District, and all these organizations, they trust us. And we also have a lot of students that we have helped in the past 6 years, they trusted us. They often sent their trust from such great universities where they are growing now. And we have been trusted by parents for our care, for our service, for our hybrid model, for our online and offline programs, for our theories and practices that we help the students. And today, it's the time to have our Dean Esther to answer your questions. Up to now, we already have 68 parents already sent their questions to us, and they are looking for answers. How trust empowers the child? How can we build up the trust with the students? So before Esther starts, I would like to give a quick heads up about our agenda. So I just did my opening and a brief introduction. Esther will start to share. She will spend about half an hour. Then we will spend about 30 to 40 minutes for Q&As. Yeah, here you see 64, but I got a formal family, so 68 families now. If you have any other questions during this webinar, please use the chat box in this Zoom function and let us know. We will answer directly or through message. Some questions will be answered in future webinars. And later I will give an announcement about our future webinars. Now let's welcome our Dean, Esther. Esther, you can start.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here, and I will share my screen now. It's very exciting to follow a movie, a video like that. So I am, one of the number one things that I do and I have done as a teacher is empower students. And the number one way that I have done it is through trust. And this has been, this is basically, if people want to describe what I'm doing in general, it's trust. But this particular, the power of trust, comes from a book about corporations here in the 21st century. And it's how top companies build, manage, and protect it. And it's trust. We need trust in all areas of life. So it's essential and important to build trust. I mean, there is no, I wish there could be some other way to describe it, but it really is just something very important that you need to remember how important it is. And I'm going to go through all these in detail. And then at the end, I'll be happy to answer all kinds of questions. I built some questions in before. So this is a friend of mine. Bill Campbell was a coach who coached a lot of CEOs in Silicon Valley. And then he died a few years ago. And then Eric Schmidt, Jonathan Rosenberg, and Alan Engel wrote this book about him called The $1 Trillion Coach. And he is a really, really important book. And it pretty much mirrors a lot of the things that I say in my book. So he has in this book, chapter 3, what he tells everyone to do in all the companies he advised was basically build an envelope of trust. And this is one of the things that was in the book. Google was one of the most important groups that he advised with Eric Schmidt. And he says, Google embraces the most important element of an employer-employee relationship, and that is trust. And Google's willingness to trust their employees is what breeds creativity above and beyond performance and job satisfaction. We should all take a page from their book. And this is just a writer, somebody in the book that included that. So Google is one of the first companies actually that I know about in Silicon Valley that did not have a time clock. You know, people came to work when they came to work, whenever they wanted to come. And that was a dramatic change. So tell you the next slide here. Sorry, oh, here we go. So as technology advances, businesses need to be more trustworthy than ever. And that's actually really important. And in today's world, all businesses need to be more trustworthy. Not sure why I'm having a little bit of trouble here, making the slides move. But there we go. So this is a very large German company, Siemens, and they announced this actually 2018, but they have implemented it now in this pandemic in all their companies. This is a huge company. And the company changed this new way they structure employees, and it's based on trust. And instead of wanting to know how you get to that point where your product is successful, they focus on outcomes. So trust is not only important in companies, it's also important in relationships. And without trust, you can't have a relationship. Without trust, there's no love. You need trust. And so here are some of the things for parents. Parents who build unshakable trust with kids have 7 things in common. Actually, in fact, they have 8. I added 1. So you'll see what I am talking about, but these are all important things. So number 1 is they keep their promises. So one of the things you need to do is never threaten kids with something that you're never going to carry out. And don't promise them things that you can't fulfill. Because then when you promise them things that you don't do, they lose faith in you and they lose trust. Number 2, you have to be consistent. And I know that's hard because, I'm a parent too. And now I'm a grandparent, and I know it's hard to be consistent, and especially if you have multiple children, but that's something you need to work toward. Number 3 is you're honest. I mean, it sounds so simple to talk about it, but it's really important. So if you aren't feeling well, or if there's something that's gone wrong in your life, instead of making up some reason why that happened, if you're honest and transparent with your kids, they will really appreciate it, and then they will trust you. I wish I could emphasize this even more. So here's another one that is really important. It's listen actively. And I know as a teacher, and been where I was teaching for 40 years in Palo Alto High School, that one of the things that I always had to train kids to do was to listen actively. And that means don't just listen and then you're really not listening, but you're just waiting for your turn to say something. That's not active listening. You aren't really listening. People can tell when you're listening or not. And you too can do that. You can tell. So listen actively, respond to what they're talking about, and, pay attention. It makes a big difference. You want to respect their ideas. Their ideas might be a little crazy. Little kids have crazy ideas. But, if it's not something that's going to hurt them or hurt you or hurt the world in any way, it's okay for them to have some of their ideas. This I mentioned also in being transparent when I talked about honesty. Reason I put it down here is because I think it's really important, transparency. And that's what I did as a teacher. Most teachers don't do that. Most teachers put on a big front and they try to pretend everything is perfect when it's not, or pretend that they know things when they don't know them. That is not a good way to go. My students appreciated the fact that I was honest, transparent. I told them when I didn't know something, and I asked them if they wanted to help. This one is really important. Collaborate with your kids. Instead of dictating, Instead of always telling them what to do, collaborate with them. Talk to them about why it is that you're deciding to do something a certain way. See whether or not you can't get their opinion. What do you think about it? You know, we're going to visit Yosemite in 2 weeks. What do you think about it? What do you know about Yosemite? Do you want to go? Why would you not want to go? You know, just talk to them. A lot of people don't talk to their kids. And this is number 8, the one I added a little bit more. Mutual respect between parent and child. That is so important, especially in teenage children, because without mutual respect, they don't talk to you. I'm sorry to say. So kids don't do what you say. They do what you do. So I found that out in my classes when I was in the 1980s, 90s. I was doing peer-to-peer learning. That was before lots of people did it. And one thing that I was kind of shocked by when I had kids helping each other, I thought to myself, wow, it's really funny. They sound like me. And I thought, like, well, where could that have come from? And what that is people, especially kids, they copy what you do. So you want to make sure that what you're doing is what you want them to do. So here's some culture issues that I thought I would just talk a little bit about. There's cultural insights about trust in China, trust in Asia, and pretty much all the Asian countries. There is very little trust. And, you know, it's hard. It's hard for people when you don't trust each other. So part of this trust might have come about from the Cultural Revolution that brought a legacy of fear and distrust. Unfortunately, that's a period that's over, but you know, this legacy might still be there, might be influencing people. And people in the same family often didn't even trust each other. So, you know, one of the things you have to ask is whether this is impacting you in any way, with which you might not even realize. So parents tend to distrust their kids. They're like, I have to micromanage and make sure they're doing the right thing. And if I don't do that, well, maybe they'll fail. And so they tend not to trust their kids. And so when you don't trust your kids, they actually don't trust themselves either. They become more dependent on you. And also, that's based on a philosophy that the parent knows best. When the parent knows best, how does that make the kid feel? So the goal for most of the parents is for the child to be number one. But realistically speaking, there is only one number one. So what about the other 100 or thousands of kids? And parents get really concerned and fear failure, and thus so do the kids. They're totally afraid to fail. And the fear of failure results in a lack of creativity and innovation. You have to be willing to fail if you're doing something innovative. Otherwise, you can't do it. Creativity requires vulnerability. You need to be vulnerable. Vulnerable means you're putting yourself out there. And yes, it could be terrible. And, but you cannot be creative without vulnerability. So here's a very famous TED speaker. This is Sir Ken Robinson. Unfortunately, he died last month. He was a great, great person, and he influenced a lot of people. His talk was the #1 TED Talk in the world. And he said, if you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original. Never. So that's something that we need to think about. You know, we're trying to embed creativity and innovation because it's so important in today's world. People, in fact, would rather lie than admit being wrong or admit failing. And there's one recent example that some of you might know about is a coffee group in China Luckin Coffee. It was a great coffee place, and unfortunately they didn't meet their expectations. And instead of admitting it, they just kept lying about it. The reason I happen to know about it is because I invested in it. And I'm still hoping that they will come back. So fear of failure also results in cheating. Kids cheat when they see the adults in their life do it. Here's another thing that's important for everyone to know. Americans tend to trust really quickly. They don't ask a lot of questions. And Asian culture tends to build trust. So first you ask questions, and then after you see how people do, then you ask more questions. And then finally you build trust. So the question I have is, are we preparing kids for success when we don't trust them? That's a question that you just should be thinking about. How do kids feel about themselves when they're not trusted? So these are some of the questions that I have already seen, and I thought I would just talk about them briefly now and then more in detail at the end of the talk. What to do with a kid who's always lying? Well, one of the reasons the kid always lies is because he's afraid to tell the truth, and he has seen this model somewhere else in his life, and it worked. So one of the things I recommend is collaborating with this child. Discuss what they're doing. Listen to them. Kids that are always lying don't feel appreciated, and they don't feel understood. And they think lying is the only way to move ahead. Here was another question: how to control screen time using trust strategy. Collaborate. Your child wants to be a success. They want to do things right. And when you dictate and tell them what to do, you're not explaining why, you're just telling them what to do. If you collaborate with them, it works really effectively. All these examples are in my book, by the way. How to help kids develop deep interests. Well, the main reason a lot of kids don't develop deep interests is because the parents tell them what to be interested in. What you want to do is give your child a choice of interests. Let them explore. There's so many ways to explore. Let them come up with what they are interested in. If you're worried too much that they'll be interested in something you don't want them to be interested in, there's a problem then. And what to do with kids with no clear goals? It's a sad story, but there are a lot of kids with no clear goals, and they don't have any goals because they've been told what to do all the time. And so they have not been given any freedom or any agency, any right to come up with the ideas that they want to. So what about a kid who's supposed to be doing homework but is watching YouTube instead? Clearly that child has not been talked to in the way, they don't understand why. There's been no discussion. There's been no training in time management. There's no options. You want to give your child the opportunity to manage their own time. You want to help them set up a routine and a schedule, and within that schedule, they should manage their own time. There's not going to be a sudden break between 12 and 15 and 15 and 18. All of a sudden, oh, now I know how to manage my own time. This is something people learn in time, gradually. And how to convince a strong-minded kid, that he has the idea wrong. I'm sorry, this is a mistake here. That he has the wrong idea. Again, you want to collaborate with that child, and you should be grateful that he has a strong mind and is very opinionated, and you'll see why in a minute. So here's one of the things: why do kids trust others and not their parents? It's usually, and it's back to the number one thing I said, usually you made promises and didn't keep them. And usually it's because you might have dictated too much and they want independence. So this is important for you to know. You know, you want your kids to trust you. And so the idea is make promises you can keep. So the 5 principles for education today for parents, teachers, and managers is this philosophy that I call TRICK. I don't know if you were here for my last talk, but I'll talk about it briefly. TRICK stands for trust, respect, independence, collaboration, and kindness. And what I say is you need to trust your children, respect their ideas, give them some independence, collaborate with them, and treat them with kindness. This is my new book. This is the hardback copy of the book came out in last year in June. And this year, just in August, the softback copy, paperback copy came out with this cover, How to Raise Successful People. Simple lessons to help your child become self-driven, respectful, and resilient. So this is, again, when you trust your child, when you trust them, they then trust themselves. You trust them to make dessert for dinner tonight. That's putting faith in them that they actually can do it. If they succeed in doing it, that's wonderful. If they don't succeed, you can say, oh, maybe you should try again, you know, but you can congratulate them for trying. So the new model in the education world today is self-directed learning. The student as CEO of their learning and the teacher as a guide on the side. So this involves a lot of trust. We trust them to be independent learners. And the question is, why is it essential for you in the 21st century? It empowers the learner, it encourages creativity, encourages curiosity, and engages kids. Those are really important reasons. And we all have one of these in our pocket, and a lot of us use it for phone and text and music and directions, but also you use it to learn. So the pandemic offers an opportunity for managing independent learning, and your kids can learn how to do it too. And remote work means self-monitoring and requires more trust. You can't control your employees by going over to everybody's house and watching them, you know, you have to trust them. So there's a lot of opportunities for self-learning today. This is a new one that is coming out next week, and I'm involved. This is my former students that are doing this. This is a website for kids by kids called track.app. And at some point, yeah, we're looking for kid creators, and it's a great way for them. It's a great thing to put on their resume for all kinds of things, getting jobs, getting into college, and so forth. So you want to teach them to think about the community, not just about themselves. COVID is the perfect time. And you want to teach them kindness by modeling it yourself. That, I mean, is so important. You can't tell people to be kind and then you are not kind. They will not copy that model. It's a high stress world at the moment, so we need to be really kind to each other. So my ideas about teaching started with the birth of my daughters, and I'm not sure you all know who my daughters are. Here they are when they were little. That's Susan, Janet, and Anne, and here they are today. This was taken at the Breakthrough Prizes in Mountain View. And this is Susan, who is the CEO of YouTube. This is Janet, professor of pediatrics at the University of California Medical Center. This is Anne, founder of 23andMe, the largest personal genetics company in the world. And what did I teach them? It's okay to take a risk and not succeed. Try everything. Don't be afraid of failure. Just do it again. Be kind, and they had early responsibility for themselves. And we'll go into that in a minute. So Elon Musk's mom is also a good friend of mine, Mae Musk. And we have talked a lot about parenting and what we did, and she treated her kids the same way I did. She has the same parenting philosophy. She gave Elon early responsibilities, never even looked at his homework, believed he could do whatever she asked him to do. She asked him to do a lot of things, like he was sending out letters to her clients when he was 8 years old. She empowered him by believing in him. He did terribly in school. And, you know, she never really did much about it. She didn't, I mean, maybe she did care, but she didn't have time to do anything. She figured he liked to read, so he would be okay. And he built his first computer program at home by himself with his brother as a teenager. So he had a lot of opportunity to fail, a lot of opportunity to try things out. And this is what led to a lot of his, he believes strongly in himself, his self-esteem and his empowerment. So I taught them to believe in themselves like Elon's mom did for her by trusting my daughters. The stories are in my book. And I taught them to make the place a better world. And that's also the same thing that Mae Musk taught Elon. Always try to make the world a better place. Think about the community. I taught them no one can control life. Just like now, we can't control the pandemic, but you can control your reaction to life. Always look for the good. So this is an important statement for everybody. When you can't control what's happening, challenge yourself to control the way you respond to what's happening. That's where your power is. Just have to think about that for a minute. And realize people make lots of mistakes before they reach their goal. Lots of mistakes. Again, the stories are in my book about what my daughters did. Not a single one of them graduated having a job. They didn't even know what they wanted to do. So there's an example. So here's a cartoon that sums it all up, the whole talk. You know, probably you could just have seen this cartoon and then said, well, I've got the message. Honey, when you grow up, I want you to be assertive, independent, and strong-willed. But while you're a kid, I want you to be passive, pliable, and obedient. So, in fact, that's what we're doing to our kids. So next is questions and answers. And I think Bill is going to take care of this and help me with the questions and answers. And I want to thank you all for coming on a Saturday afternoon and being here with me. And my goal is to help you be better parents and help your children be more successful. So thank you so much for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Esther. You already answered some of the questions that our attendees raised in the past 1 week. I think during this Q&A session, we can have more questions coming from them.
There were a lot of questions. I mean, I only answered 6. There were like 40.
We got more. Let's see. Yeah, if you have questions, you can type it in the chat box in this Zoom function. I saw the first question is actually about how to find the previous webinar. The best way is to go to LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube. You can just search Harmony Plus, search our company name, like it. You will never miss anyone. And on Facebook, you can also find the previous episodes, including Esther's first webinar about the parenting. So this is the second one. Let me see more question. Here's another question. How to control her emotions, for example, anger?
Okay, that's a really good question. So I don't know how old the child is that you're trying to get them to control their anger, but if they're between the ages of 5 and 10 or 12, they need to understand anger, and they don't understand it. A lot of kids just don't understand it. So it's important for you as a parent to help them understand their different reactions to different things that happen in the world. I would give them, I'm sure your child is smart. I think most of the kids that I've dealt with in 40 years, they were all really smart. And even the ones that were getting bad grades were smart. They just didn't want to do the work. And so I would just give them an opportunity to explore what is anger, you know, because anger is really, it's self-anger for the most part. People are really angry at themselves and for messing up or doing something wrong. And so if you can help them understand that they have to be kind to themselves first, then they will perhaps be able to get over the anger. But a lot of people, a lot of adults don't even realize that that's what anger, that's where the basis of anger comes from, anger at yourself.
Okay, we saw more questions about the kids lying. One parent just said, can I trust the kid even if I know he is lying? And the other parent asked, okay, what do you do when kids could not keep their promise or didn't have enough self-discipline? Could there be too much trust?
Well, I think that if they're lying, they must have learned that somewhere in the home, sorry to say, because most of the time, if you talk to little kids, 2 and 3 years old, they don't lie. They don't even know what the concept is. And as they get older, they lie, and they've learned it from somebody. And so the people lie because they're trying to protect themselves from something bad that's going to happen, whatever it is. So you have to talk to them and look at what did they lie about. I would say usually in today's world, what I hear kids lying about is how much time they spend playing computer games. You know, they tell their parents, you know, I'm going to go in the room and read a book. And the next thing you find out is they're in the room playing a computer game. So you need to talk to kids, and I can't emphasize how effective it is to talk to kids. So in 40 years of teaching, I never sent a kid to the main office. Whenever they did something that I didn't think was appropriate or bad, some kids even did bad things, I would make them stay after school with me. That was the first thing. And then I had them talk about what they had done. And then I wasn't done at that point. They then had to write about it. And they had to write about it right then and there. No, you cannot go home and write about it later. No, none of that. You have to write about it right now. Why this was the way that you behaved. Anyway, what I found that was really interesting is that none of those kids ever did it again.
Okay, when you mentioned the school, actually, there were some parents also asked something related. Why do kids listen to their teachers more than listen to the parents?
Because the teacher has built up a sense of trust. And so they trust the teacher because the teacher doesn't make promises that are not going to be kept and doesn't make threats that are not going to happen.
So because of the distance, the students cannot see teachers even if the teacher overpromised in case some.
Well, if you are, so one of the things you learn as a teacher is you never overpromise. So if you want your students to believe you and to respect you, you don't make threats or promises you don't want to keep. They teach you that in School of Education. So I think that's part of the reason why they trust the teacher, because they see the teacher as unbiased and reliable.
So that is sometimes the parents are biased.
They think the parents are biased, and that they think the parents are going to get mad because they found out that the student is perhaps not the first student in the class, or has a bad grade, or there's some other thing. So they're afraid that the parent will take action that is not favorable to them because of something that they did. You know? Yeah.
Okay. So parents may take actions. I think that's a very good point for our audience today to rethink, because as a parents, you have more impact on your kids. Students, they spend like 7 or 8 hours in school, but they spend more time at home and they stay with you. So the actions can be really meaningful and even killing to some kids. They kind of feel scared.
They feel scared. So, you know, they're afraid to tell you if you teach them something, whatever it could be, multiplication or something, and then they don't know how to do it. They'll be afraid to tell you they don't know how to do it, and they'll lie. Because if they think you will be mad because they didn't learn. So a teacher, one of the gifts of being a good teacher is being really patient. And so one of the things I've always said to my students, if you don't understand it, you can just ask me over and over again. I will not get mad. You can repeat it. And not only that, the way that I taught writing, you revise your essay over and over again. You don't get a grade until you are done. And then you get an A.
Yeah, I remember that 6 years ago when I visited you at Palo Alto High, the first time I visited you, I heard from the students, I will get an A for sure, because one day I will master it and I will be granted for A. I think that's something interesting. And I heard a keyword you mentioned about patience. Maybe this is something we need to remind and emphasize, not just sharing with parents, patience, how patient we are. I'm a father as well. Yeah, the patience is a challenge, especially for Asian parent. Here, yeah, a parent asked, you talk about the reactions from the kids, but the question is, what would you say to the kid, and how would you react when your kid betrayed your trust? Okay, this father or mother asked a very interesting question. How should a parent react?
So what I did, my children were normal. So they, of course, betrayed my trust sometimes. And, you know, I put this also in the book too. One of the times they really betrayed my trust was I left them, the three of them, they were, I don't know, 16, 15, and 13. And we went away for the weekend. And I said, you know, take care of the dog, take care of the house and all that. And I came back to discover, this a long story that's in the book, that they had a gigantic party at my house and the police were called. And so, you know, this is a big violation of trust, right? And so what could I do? Well, one of the things that I did was, you know, of course, talk to them in detail. And then I wanted to make sure that I did not give them an opportunity to violate my trust again. Because sometimes, you know, you put your child in a position where violating your trust is probably the optimum thing to do. And so then you know, if I went away again, I left somebody in the house that could make sure that there were no big, gigantic parties in the house. But there are smaller violations of trust that I think happen, you know, every day, saying, you know, I will do something for you, and then you don't do it. Those are like little things, but if you build those up, if there's a lot of those that happen, then the child doesn't trust you. And so you have to be really careful, and you have to be patient. You know, I think patience is, you know, giving them an opportunity to revise repeatedly, I think is what it is all about. And that can be math or science or social studies. And don't think your kid is stupid just because they have to do it a lot. All that practice they're doing, they normally do in school, and you don't see it. But now, because of the pandemic, we're all home, and you see how much how much repetition is required for some kids to really understand.
Okay, yeah. Let me give you the feedback about one more question about lying. This parent asked how to define the difference between lying and boasting.
What was lying and what was the last part?
Boasting, B-O-A-S-T. Boast.
Oh, so boasting is lying that kids do to make themselves feel better, that actually doesn't really hurt anybody but discredits your credibility. But lying can have some kind of a negative consequence. That, you know, you can lie and say, you know, I got an A on the test. And why would you lie and say you got an A on the test? Well, the reason you did that is because you're trying to protect yourself from your parents being mad. Or you lie and say you went to this friend's house when really you went to that friend's house. It's because you want freedom and you can't get it. But boasting doesn't hurt very much, other than it gives kids that boast are kids who have low self-esteem. And they need to be appreciated for who they are, so that they don't have to make up things about themselves.
Okay, I just noticed that most of our audience today, or people raise the questions, their kids are still at K-12 stage, so their questions are quite similar. Lying is a very frequent word I saw, and the second one have been seeing again and again is about the video games. Here, this mom asked, I trust my son a lot of time, but he plays his video games and watches YouTube all the time and sleeps late, gets up late. He's always finish his homework at the last minute. He's already a 10th grader. His GPA is very so-so.
So just think about Elon Musk. That mother just needs to think about that. Let me tell you, the kids who play video games, first of all, 70% of them are boys. The majority of video game players are boys, and they learn a lot of tech skills in playing those video games, a lot. And so one of the things you might want to do, you parents, you play one of those games and see how well you do. You'll be shocked at how poorly you do. Though, you know, I'm looking now, you know, this is another company that I'm advising. I'm looking for kids who are gamers. Because they have all the skills for handling the internet that other kids don't have. So, you know, I would like to say you don't want them to be gaming all day long, but you do want to give them an opportunity to game for an hour or two or whatever a day. So one of my grandchildren, he was a gamer too. I won't tell you which one, but he was a big gamer. And so what we said is that you really want a big gaming computer? And he said, oh yeah, I want one. Can you buy one? And it's like, yeah. And I took him, I said, I'll buy you a gaming computer. So we went to Fry's and we bought all the components, and he had to build it himself. Let me tell you how hard that was. And he never complained, and he did it. So, you know, and I can tell you, he's only 11. He could be hired right now. So yes, you know, I think you need to work with them. You have to help them set limits for themselves, because, you know, these kids are smart. They don't want to just be doing gaming all the time. Don't, you know, treat them like they're smart, give them some respect, and then help them set a schedule.
Okay,
honestly,
yeah.
They will love you.
Okay, set a schedule. But here, these parent asked, yes, there is a schedule. The kids said, I'm doing the homework, but actually they are watching YouTube or playing games.
She didn't tell them, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. We're going to try again. We're going to give you another opportunity to do it the right way. And then you can offer some reward. I don't know what kind of reward they want, but something, honestly, my grandchildren do a lot of things for gummy bears. So there's always a lot of, you never know what they want, but offer them a reward for sticking to the schedule that they collaborated with you on and built themselves.
Yeah, this year, due to the pandemic, most schools, they have to offer online courses or just hybrid learning. Students are spending the learning time at home. But naturally, we saw many students, they are asking us, should we run for the president or the secretary of the e-sport club?
Yes. Club. Let them do that, of course. They should do that. They should start their own club, whatever club they want to start online, and then they can have lots of fun. One of my grandchildren, actually, my daughter said he wanted to take a math class, and she said, okay, fine, just find a math class online you like. And so he looked around, found this math class, and she had to pay for it. She paid for it and whatever. And then when she was done, she's like, oh my God, you signed up for the wrong math class. He signed up for a math class at UCLA and he passed. And she was like shocked. But, so you never know, mistakes like that happen, but that, he did really well. So we're happy, but you give your kids the opportunity to take some of these classes they want to themselves. Who knows what they're going to be.
Yeah, Esther, you are a great teacher. People say you're one of the best teachers in America. And there's a question quite challenging to teachers. Students, they have their argument. They say, hey, YouTube or online games are more interesting than what our teachers are teaching us every day, than our school offerings. What do you think? Any problems in the education?
So, what's the problem with the teachers? And, honestly, all my colleagues are teachers and I respect them a lot. But a lot of teachers are following the rules. So the school district tells you what to teach. You don't just teach whatever you want. You follow, they have a book and a curriculum and everything, and they tell you what to teach. And teachers feel obligated to follow the curriculum. And I think that is one of the reasons why they're not as flexible as people think they should be. I think if teachers didn't have to follow the curriculum so closely, maybe they could give kids an assignment where watch a YouTube video to do this. Because, YouTube is the #1 learning platform in the entire world. And since the pandemic, it's gone up 30%. And before the pandemic, YouTube had 1 billion education hits per day.
Wow.
And you can imagine what it's like now with a 30% increase. So, people can learn a lot on YouTube. My theory as a teacher was always, I really don't care how you get this information. I just want you to get it. I want you to learn how to write. I want you to learn how to give a talk. And all these things, if you look at the newspapers and magazines my students published, they're at the top of the country. And I said, and of course I was teaching writing. And I gave them a lot of opportunities to write about things they cared about. That's what I think was the key. They were passionate about the subject they were writing about. And then I think the reason that I had so much success is because of this revision policy I had. Nobody had to worry about getting a bad grade. Nobody. They all got A's because all they had to do was revise. Can you imagine how every kid in America would love that school if it was like that, or in the world for that matter? I think one of the reasons that people don't like school so much is because most of traditional school is surrounded with fear. Fear of a bad grade, fear of what the teacher's going to say, fear that they might talk to your parents, you know, fear that you're going to fail, all this. And I just said, people don't learn well when they're afraid. They learn well when they're happy. So like, I'm going to make my classes happy. And so that's got rid of all the fear. And if you make a mistake, you don't have to get mad, just do it again, whatever it is.
I think you made a great point about the fear. It's not just schools, even some educational companies, they also scare the parents or students quite a lot. Yeah, I think that's why at Harmony Plus, we try to embrace our core values: smile, support, mission, innovation, love, and enjoyment. Love is something really important. Love helps things to grow, and love helps people to embrace you, and especially kids to trust. And here is a question from George. I'm afraid this his question, or if we really do this, kids will reduce the love. The question is, hello Esther, I'm George. What do you think of applying discipline to the kids by giving a spunk? You never had to spunk your daughters?
So I didn't believe in spanking.
Yeah.
And the reason, and if you look at all the education research, it shows that spanking is really counterproductive. It does the opposite of what you say. No, I never had to spank my daughters, but I did have to get very controlling, let's put it this way. When we lived in Geneva, Switzerland, we lived in Switzerland for 1.5 years. You know, it's freezing in the cold winter there. And one of my daughters refused to put on a jacket, you know? She's a California girl going to Geneva. I was like, you've got to wear a jacket. So, you know, in a situation like that, it got to be a little less friendly than I would have liked. You know, we couldn't go out. It was either you put the jacket on and we go out, or you don't put the jacket on and we stay at home. But no, I don't think spanking is a good idea. And I think it's most psychiatrists and psychologists and educational therapists and so forth will recommend against spanking. So try another technique. Put, you know, you sit down and talk to them, you know, calm them down in some way, give them one chocolate chip if they sit down and they're quiet. You know, the only time I think kids are really difficult to control is when they're very small and they are insistent on doing something themselves. That can be a bit of a challenge.
Okay.
So,
yeah, we have more questions about motivations. I know one parent asked how long game times for a high school student considered as reasonable. I think it depends actually. Some parents also shared with us, it's also about goals. If kids don't have goals, they will just spend all the time on games because the games are designed better than traditional courses.
If they have no goals, what happens when you play a game is you kind of lose yourself in the game and then you forget about all your problems. And so I think it's really important for kids to be given options to pick what they want to do. That's a lot of parents don't do that. They just tell their kids what to do. You know, you're taking violin lessons and you're taking piano lessons, or I signed you up for tennis lessons and you're going. No, you have to talk to them and get them. It's harder, takes more time, but it's in the long run, it's more effective. Or maybe they can come up with some ideas they want to do. But gaming on computers, I limit that really to 2 hours a day at the maximum. And I know that some kids want to do it for 5 hours a day. I think this is way too much. 2 hours is enough. And and you can talk to them intelligently about why they should do other things besides gaming. and give them the options of doing other things. They should eat well, they should exercise, they should talk to their friends. You know, a lot of kids that are gaming are lonely.
Yeah, and I saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions on this page asking how can we help our kids to find their passion, or how to find the interest?
Let them explore, let them look around, give them a lot of sports options, intellectual options. You know, watch a movie with them. Watching movies with your kids is a good idea when you're talking about what's going on. Let them talk to their friends about different things. Introduce them to different professions and tell people what they're doing. You know, a lot of kids, people don't talk to them and give them these ideas. They just assume that it's going to come naturally, but it doesn't come naturally. Also, when you watch a movie with them, since we don't go to the movies anywhere outside anymore, now you can talk to them while the movie's playing and explain what's going on and see whether they're, you know, whether that's an interest of theirs. I mean, my daughter, Anne, she's very gifted in music. She was exceptionally gifted. And then she decided, instead of doing music, I couldn't believe it, she was playing the piano. She decided she wanted to do ice skating. And I think most parents would say no. First of all, it's expensive sport. Secondly, they practice at 5 o'clock in the morning, so it's really terrible for the mother or father.
Oh.
So anyway, I finally decided that she really wanted to do it, so I let her do ice skating. Anyway, she became a competitive skater. You know, she went on to be in one of those teams where you see all those girls twirling around on stage or in ice rings. So that made her happy, you know, and what made me happy, I still have the piano in the living room. I wish she would have played it. You know, I bought her a grand piano, still there. So would love to have some kid come over and play the piano.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I still see many questions coming up. We know so many parents, they are very into ethics about this webinar. So we already extended the time, but let's give 10 more minutes to finish some questions, and many questions will be answered in our future webinars. And about the passion part, how to find the students' interest, you can, if you can look at the screen and see how to contact us, you can contact me or my colleagues. I even put my personal email here, bill.zhaowei@harmonyplus.com, or my personal WeChat, 111-55151. You can find me, and then we can help you to narrow down your kids' passion and interest. We have an existing system, plus some tests or research or activities. It's a systematic approach, so you can we would like to help you further after this webinar. Let's answer more questions. Here, this parent asked, okay, I so appreciate your experience, Esther. I was wondering if you have had experience working with kids with learning differences. My son has slow processing speed, and the education world moves at a rapid pace.
Yeah, I've worked with kids with learning differences too. And sometimes, usually it's kids with dyslexia. And that means that they have a hard time reading the letters the way most of us read them. And there are multiple techniques for helping them be more effective readers and more effective basically writers and communicators. But the main thing that I found in doing that is that if you use these techniques, that I could probably send Bill a link on what to use with kids with dyslexia or slow readers, that might be helpful. But the main thing is patience. you don't want to give them a complex. You want to say that, you know, you just have a different way of learning and it's fine. Your way of learning gives you a different way of looking at the world, and you can be a more original, creative thinker. So you don't want them to feel bad about it. You just want them to learn how to deal with it in a way that's most effective. So those are the main kids that I had to deal with. I also found that I had some kids that they were supposed to be in the low lane. They used to lane the kids low, medium, and high. And I found that kids in the low lane were just as smart as kids in the high lane. They just lacked self-esteem. They were afraid to make a mistake. And so I think, again, patience works really well with those kids and giving them the opportunity to revise. So
yeah, there's another family asked a question also about a special situation. The kid has ADHD. Is your methodology like
yeah, ADHD. So I've worked with a lot of kids with ADHD and ADD and everything. And so I'm not convinced that your child has ADD or ADHD. My theory is that a school just is really hard place for kids with ADD or ADHD to sit all day in one place and pay attention. So all the kids in my program who had that designation, they had to run around. I was in a portable for 30 years. They had to run around the portable multiple times before they came into class. They had to exercise. And then when I got this big building, now I have this 25,000 square foot building, we had exercycles in the classrooms. So if kids were really antsy and couldn't concentrate, they could sit and exercise at the same time. It was remarkable how they could concentrate really well when they were on an exercycle. So that's what I did with kids with ADD and ADHD, was just require exercise just before my class or while they were actually in the class, and it worked.
Okay, let's answer one more question. My daughter is 14 years old and a ninth grader. She refuses to talk and said I interrogate her, how to talk to her.
She refuses to talk and tell you what's going on in her life, you mean? Well, the reason she refused is because she doesn't want to be criticized. She doesn't want to be judged. She wants you to be an active listener. And I think in the past, you have not been an active listener. You've probably been very judgmental. And when parents are very judgmental, kids don't talk. They won't talk to their parents. So one of the things you can do, get my book, read the book, let her read the book and tell her you're changing your parenting techniques. It works. I'm just telling you. A lot of my students have read the book and told me, please give it to my parents.
That's a Christmas gift.
That's a Christmas present. Yeah, it came out last year in May or June. And then for Christmas, lots of people were like, we're giving your book to our parents.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Esther. Thank you very much. And this is usually our webinar lasts for 1 hour only. And you're so kind to answer more questions by extending the time. And I know many parents or many students or teachers, they still want to stay in touch with us. And I know today's participants, over 60% of them came through WeChat. Where we had a very high conversion rate, but unfortunately, WeChat will be off since tomorrow. So we have a Telegram group, which is shown on this slide. You can visit and find us. But again, the easiest way is to search Harmony Plus on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube. again, today's webinar is very informational, a lot of information. So you can go back to Facebook, and later we will also upload today's webinar onto YouTube. So you can watch and share with your friends. You need to trust your friends that they are not competing with your kids, but to grow together with your kids. So hope all together we can empower your kids better. And there are many ways to support your kids. There are many ways to empower them. So here is a notice about our next webinar, next Saturday webinar. As I said, we have done this for 234 weeks. Next week, we will have Nabi. He will come up and share because he's the strategic partnership leader at Harmony Plus, and he himself is the executive board member of NAACP in San Jose. And he was a Stanford seed consultant. He will share the importance of extracurricular activities and also internships, how internships can make it big. Okay, so this is about next week, same time, 5 o'clock, Californian time, PDT. So follow us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube. You will know more. Let's work together. And again, about Esther's series, please wait for another 21 days. We will wait for you, and we keep talking. And we would like to hear from you. It's trick, trust,
respect,
independent, and collaboration and kindness. Which topic you are going to listen first? You can vote later, and we will be here. We are always here physically or through online technologies. Empower your kids and also empower you. Okay, we will soon launch our parent education courses, programs. Just follow us. We need your advice. Like, make those programs more interactive, more useful for all of you. Again, thank you very much for your time today. Let's meet next Saturday. See you. Thank you very much for your time.